I thought about 25 different ways to address this lecture or go through it, and I can just like be all chronological and biographical and tell you the story of all the different pieces I made and how I made them and why each one was made and what happened the next. But I thought maybe that's a bit boring and we should reverse things because I don't believe in the arrow of time. And instead of doing questions last, I thought we should do questions first. I would rather know, why did you show up here this evening? Thank you for coming. Like, who am I talking to? What are you interested to know? Why'd you come? What are you looking for? And then maybe I shall try to provide. It's a small enough group. Yes. What's your name?
My name is Sarah, and I like to do little heroic things in my life. And coming here, I think is heroic because I'm not at all into dance or anything. But I think 2 or 3 years ago, I was walking in the street and I passed Minacht, and you had a show there.
You mean in 2007?
Was it that long ago?
Yeah.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know you.
8 years ago.
Yeah, and I was there, and it was so amazing, and I was really impressed by the nothingness, but at the same time, it was really.
The nothingness?
Yeah,
You
because
found there to be nothingness in that piece? Huh.
I think so, because the moves you made were. Like you had this YouTube, afterwards I found these YouTube films of you introducing some dance moves.
Yeah.
And they're really down to earth, simple moves. I really thought there was a lot of humor in there.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to come.
Heroic, indeed. Reminds me of two things. At the beginning of a solo I made, this is perfect, you just introduced right into my chronologically. My chronology. In 2004, I made a solo called Eleanor, and it starts now, it's changed since then. When I first made the piece, it was 12 minutes long, but now it's just like for 1 hour, it's like a 1 hour thing. But it starts with me introducing myself to everybody in the audience and shaking their hand and saying, hi, I'm Eleanor, and blah, 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 and I count them all with the counter. And then I stand in front and I ask what everybody does, like who's an artist, who's a student, blah, 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 blah. Like I get a huge survey of the demographics of who's in the house and why. Oh, at the end, there's usually like one person who isn't somehow involved in the arts, teaching, a student, administrating, participating, performing, like they were dragged there by a friend or they're dating an artist. Like when I get through the whole list, there's like one person who's not themselves in the art world. And I single that person out and I thank them dearly for coming because we need them. So yes, thank you for braving the dance world without knowing anything about it that fine day and for returning. You save us from our hermetics. Bring your friends next time. You did. Awesome. So at large, hi, that piece was made in 2007. I can talk about it, guys. Should I talk about that piece? I can talk about that piece. That was the first piece I made after I graduated from Parts, and it was, oh, looky, I have very little about it on the internet. Because I got rid of most everything on the internet about it, which is weird and contradictory to the whole point of having made that piece. I think I grew up and got ashamed of it. It happens. So that piece was, I don't know if we have, yeah, we don't anymore have the hyperlinks. Hi! That piece was okay, so the idea of that piece, I think that piece was kind of like the beginning of my, it was literally, and also in methodology, the beginning of my artistic career in Europe, in a sense of, it was the first time I wrote a funding application 2 years before making a piece on stage. The first time I had like a hugely articulated theoretical concept that preceded entering the studio. The first time I was publicly funded to make anything. So there I was in this place where I was like, I had this opportunity to make something, and I realized like in this act of writing this text, convincing people of the value of my work when I just came out of school, I mean basically it was like 1 year after leaving school, I was really confronted with that idea, that question of value, like what is this? What's the position, role, or purpose of dance in the world, quote, at large, which is why the piece is called At Large. So, guys, wow. So I was thinking about how to make a piece that extends beyond, how to address dance as a currency beyond just what happens in the theater. So how is it different to dance in a party with friends? How is it different, like how has dance played a role or a function or a purpose in society in a social or even ritualistic way? How does dance in a contemporary setting move like a currency? Like how is it not more like a money as much as like electrical currency? You know, how is it exchanged? How does it pass from body to body? Because it is one of those things that is passed on. It's like a tradition. Like dance moves slowly also through the art forms because it has to be, that's too much. Oh God, I don't want to do that, sorry. I can't look at that slideshow anymore. Dance changes slowly in relationship to other art forms because it has this slow transmission from body to body. Dance practices are shared with people in the same room mostly. And then suddenly, like YouTube was invented in 2006, right? And you have all these people teaching social dances, which are even the most specifically intimate phenomena in dance, right? Like it's my friends on the street here dancing together that make up this thing. And suddenly in 2006, when YouTube was invented, you had people from like street dance crews teaching their dance moves on YouTube, like to other people. So the whole, you had this idea that it's like a very niche, clique, like insular thing. Social dances would sort of like breed in these tiny cultures and communities and subcultures, but actually this desire to like want to reach a lot of people, you realize like that was, I wouldn't have expected that from street dances, for instance. So I was sort of interested in how also the internet was changing, like, yeah, it was 2006, we could still talk about the internet as a new thing, okay, fine. So YouTube was, like, it was brand new YouTube, and this, like how dance responded to YouTube was kind of crazy, because dance is something that has a very limited lifespan. It happens in that room, it's live, it's witnessed, and it disappears. Documentation usually sucks, and the reach is very, not broad, it's very locally experienced thing in time and space. So then I was thinking about how contemporary dance also deals with a globalized culture in the sense of training, and how in my own experience as a dancer, I was taught a lot of different things enough to be proficient, so that when I would audition, I could be diverse and I could get any sort of job. And most contemporary dancers also, and that happens in a lot of art fields now, you see people with a general proficiency in many different languages or lexicons or media or whatever it is that they're studying. And very little like technical expertise in one technique or form. So like, being a ballerina is maybe a little bit obsolete, or being a Martha Graham dancer, like that's an old school thing. Committing your life to one practice and forming your body in one type of training doesn't match a contemporary value in terms of post-sportism, for instance, freelance, lifestyle, having to do many things to make a living, project-based economy, etc. So at large, was looking at this like this way that like dance kind of like belongs to everybody and nobody, and how does it relate between the tiny, intimate performances we give for each other, and then how does it spread throughout the world, but also what does it mean, what is the value or the purpose or the position of dance on a stage, which is like, watch me dance, like this very overt, I don't know, narcissism or generosity or vulnerability or braggadocio, whatever it takes to get up on a stage and dance for people. Why do you think they need to look at your dance? What compels me to get on stage and dance for other people? So there, the question of entertainment came in a lot for me, and maybe that's because I'm American, and maybe it's just because I like to give a good time, give a good show, have a laugh, right? So that piece, that like the part of the slideshow where you see me in a ridiculous sequin dress with a wig on doing a Dolly Parton I did this monologue that I stole from Dolly Parton where she's talking about how glad she is that the audience came because she really needs them, because if they wouldn't be there, she wouldn't be there, and it's just totally weird and self-effacing and goofy. So I sort of like stole her monologue that I got from some concert somewhere and sort of flipped it around, and that was sort of near the beginning of the piece. And the piece starts with a very kind of like entertainment vibe. We do like a song and dance number, and then we sort of start shifting through all these different modes of dancing together for each other, but also for an audience, for a public. And after that piece, is that all I want to say about that piece? Oh, besides the questions of what is the dance, what's happening on stage, I was also interested in extending the influence or the lifespan of the dance afterwards. So we were thinking a lot about like how things are shared and picked up and changed and transformed and adapted. Also physically, like how our training functions that way, how culture functions that way, how music today functions that way, how, I don't know, whatever. Thinking about how things are made and transmitted. So we shared the song that we wrote and we sing in the beginning. We shared online and with friends. We sent them like all the little bits and parts and like scores so people could do whatever they want and make covers of our song. It was a sweet like gesture, but like 6 people responded and made weird versions of our song. That's fine. And then we did a side project of interviews. I interviewed 50 people in 50? Yeah, yes. Yeah, I interviewed 50 people in New York and Brussels, asking them 6 questions. But that's where I'm annoyed that I didn't hyperlink that to my new website. I have to see if I would find it on the interwebs, just searching. Oh no, I'm not connected anymore. Do I have to like log back in? Rude. Really? Somebody. At large PDF? I was gonna bring you books, but I thought it'd be too heavy in my backpack, I'm sorry. If you come to Bauer Hour on Tuesday, February 24th, or Tuesday, March 31st, I will give you your own Bauer at large book, if you want one. It's at Kai Studios, Bauer Hour. So, nope, that's not gonna work. How can we do this? I don't think it was, I think yes, I gotta take care of that. Ah! Oh, file not found. Because that's my old website. Okay. Homework. I gotta write that somewhere. Oh, no, later. So we interviewed 50 people, asking them questions. Why do you dance? Why do you go see dances? What do you look for? What do you see? What do you think is that's inside of why do you see dances? What do you look for and what do you see as like sub-questions of why do you go see dances? Which is an interesting question. Like, is there something you expect and then something else that comes? Or, and then asking people also, what do they think is the position, role? If I'm talking too fast, just shout. What do you think is the position, role, or purpose of dance in your life? Or what is the position, role, or purpose of dance in your life? And then ask them also, what is the position, role, or purpose of your dancing in the lives of others? What do you think is the position, role, or purpose of your dancing in the lives of others? And then I think the last question was, is there anything you would like to see change? I think that's 6 questions, whatever. And I did these, I was still fascinated with like what YouTube was doing to performance, because people were doing weird stuff online that they were not doing before, like sitting in their bedrooms and confessing to an unknown, very large audience, stuff that should not be shared with a very large and unknown public. And I was like, what is this confession booth? Like, did people miss Catholicism? Like, what's happening right now? This is really weird. So I thought there was something about this like vague intimacy, publicity thing of not not seeing your audience, but having the desire to share. Like, duh, I'm talking about stuff that people completely get now. Like, that's all of the internet. That's all of Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, and it's just share, like that word. Share it. What does it mean? But in 2006, I still thought it was pretty weird because it was new. So what I did with those interviews is I had people sit in front of a camera with the 6 questions, and they had to answer the camera. So they were sitting there. I also didn't want them influenced by me asking, oh, that's interesting. Now, why do you think that? Like, I didn't want my response to change their answer. I wanted them to confront those questions about what is dance for them and what's the value of that thing. And it was kind of beautiful and amazing because it was a range of people from like very unprofessional to super established, confronting very difficult questions about their self-worth, basically, or the value of what they do in the world. And in New York, where things are very self-produced and unfunded, versus Europe, where people have like public support, the answers didn't change very much, actually. That's what was interesting. I thought the economy would influence much more about people's sense of the value of what they do. Maybe it's because dance is kind of marginal no matter where you go. But a lot of that, what they all said is, why do you dance? It was like in every single interview, some way or another, it was implied for pleasure, like it's fun, we like it, it feels good, pleasure, like sensuality, a relationship to my body. Even professionals, guys, even professionals. So that was kind of like, that was very refreshing for me, and kind of basic. If there's one lesson I can impart to you as students of the arts and aspiring artists, never fear being too simple. Thank you very much. That's all I have to say. We can go home now. No, yeah, so that book happened. Oh, and we published the interviews anonymously, so they're just a bunch of voices woven in. And when you go to the performance, you get a book, so that the performance is on stage, but it's also this song that's being covered, it's also these books. And finally, we decided to make our own stupid dance fad and put it on the internet and teach people in, like, wherever people look on the internet for a dance move are really bad. That I had to take it off the internet, I had to take it down. I was too embarrassed. We got some really mean comments about, never mind. So, yeah, people are mean on the internet too, that's crazy. They say things, people say things on the internet they would not say in front of 1,000 people watching, but that's basically what they're doing. Crazy place, the internet, guys. It's a crazy place. So that was at large. Bam! So after that piece was made, I'll just go with the storytelling version, unless there's more questions. I'll just say one thing. After that piece was made, after it was performed in Minard, actually, somebody said to me afterwards, and I think I just take criticism a little too seriously, because I think it was the only, like, complaint or, like, negative. People were generally very receptive and interested. It was very positively received. But the one thing that, like, I got, like, a resistance about was the relationship between entertainment and, like, dance as art or movement research. And then, of course, like, I got all, well, I have to fix it. What, there's something wrong, I have to fix it. So then I decided I had to separate entertainment from dance, and that basically, that divide, like, that was a giant lesion in my artistic practice for the last, basically the rest of the pieces I made until the piece I'm making now. I'm trying to get rid of that divide, guys. You can make art and have fun. I'm here to let you know. There's one thing to tell you as young artists and aspiring artists in the world, you can make art and have fun. No, sorry. Any other questions? Next question. Another story. No. Why'd you come here? What do you want to know? Well, what you curious about? What are you into? Who's this girl? What do you want to know from her? You've got to engage yourself a little bit. Come on then, come on then. I can also go take a nap. Yes. What's your name? Simone.
There must be some kind of process you go through every time you play these.
Near suicide and then basically recovery. Yeah, just kidding. Sorry.
What do you struggle with?
What do I struggle with?
Yeah.
You got time? Just kidding. I think it's very different for each piece. Yeah. It is I think the best way actually to talk about what I do, it just feels so weird to get up here and talk about myself for an hour, guys. I got to tell you, but I guess that's what you're here for. It is very chronological and narrative. I was going to write down questions here, but look, we're just answering them. I think I confront, for a long time, that's what's actually shifted in the last couple of pieces for me that's weird and uncomfortable. I'm confronting my lack of problems, basically. I was always solving a problem. Like, I would confront something, like I would be in a process, something would pop up, and I'm like, oh, that's weird. I'm gonna work on that for a while. So, like, with At Large, it was this, like, process of having a very theoretical based process, and another that suddenly made me have to feel like I really had to analyze and articulate what I thought dance was worth or something. So I think basically, like, the possibility of funding made me question what is the value of dance, what's the position of dance in the world, which I did somehow before in New York, but never that deeply. You didn't have that much text that, you know, you would send different, faster, shorter, more superficial. I never had the time and the space to really ask those big questions. And then after that, I think my questions about when I decided to divide between entertainment and dance, or yeah, falsely divide, or basically the first question that division produced was, what do you think dance is? What do you mean dance? Like, what's dance as such? What's dance on its own? And then made me realize that's a very modern agenda, right? Like something for itself, of its a very ontological, kind of self-contained, self-defining, autonomous, separate from other things, tidy. It's a very essentialist. Those are all modern, with a, not necessarily like modern art only, but like a modernist ideologies somehow. So that, well, that started a whole mess, because then I had to figure out, how do I relate to modernism? And that was the whole trilogy of dances. That's a very short summary of where those came from. And then on the entertainment side, also the paradox of how I felt about dance, before I go over to the entertainment side. I realized if I was forced to produce an ontology, a definition of what dance is on its own, that was immediately very paradoxical for me, because I have the sensation that dance is very messy and very multiple and very, it synthesizes many skills and interests and ways of being in the world. If we take an old school definition of dance being flapping your arms around with your body and moving your body in a way that has no utilitarian value besides the moving of your body itself and perhaps the production of pleasure or affects or experiences otherwise, with the exception of some rituals, if you want to make it rain or whatever, or celebrations. Yeah, okay, we know what we're talking about here. But like non-productive physical movement, right? In the sense of it doesn't produce another thing. It's not like labor. I realize that dance, many people probably have the experience in whatever field they practice in, that the thing they're interested in coordinates a lot of different interests in their life and brings them together. But I think dance especially is like irreducible, in the sense that if we're talking about the body, the doing and the watching of dance can never be reduced to one meaning. Like, you can talk that way about poetry, like, yeah, it's irreducible, there's always a possible different interpretation, and there's the subjective and the this, but like when we're talking about a body, we're talking about, there's not even language. Dance is not a language. There's not even a dictionary you can use to talk about what you're looking at. Like, you can deal with the history and the culture behind the movement. You can also deal with the culture and race and gender, color, texture, weight, size, scale, attitude of the person. You're people watching. You're like guessing who they are as a person. Very social, very intrusive, very voyeuristic. There's also like just the kinetics or the physics and the sort of the force and the tension and the tonus, and then there's all this kind of like affective or subconscious or emotional things going on. There's also just like the analytic. You're sitting there thinking, what's this about? No, how could this be interpreted, or what do these shapes mean together? And there's also there's like a musical and timing aspects, and there's also like reference, like imagination, like what kind of imagination gets produced by that movement. Like, it also maybe produces something else than what you're actually seeing. Sometimes it's very abstract and it's just like stuff. The body is just matter. But it's very hard to have one without all of the other constantly interfering, in a way. Like, you can't just look at the form of the dance and ignore the costume, the person's eyebrows, if they just like the sweat, just whatever. You know what I mean? We're humans. We're checking each other out all the time. And also the experience of doing dance, I feel like I coordinate a lot of different intelligences. By being a person working in a room with other people, probably have this in theater also, it's very social, very collaborative. You have to use your people intelligences, your people's intelligences, people smarts, organizational skills, like hell, like how do you work together, how do you organize a day, like how do How do you put the thing together in the room and time and space? Like crazy organizational skills, choreography. Yeah, again, like musicality and all that kinetic and physical intelligence and proprioception and qualitative intelligence and training and history, and also the way you watch yourself dance. I feel like all this stuff is present. They have imagination about what I'm doing. I have commentary about what I'm doing. I have my skill sets coming in. I'm doing things in a very practical manner, but I'm also, there's constantly a lot of relationships to the movement that I'm having at the same time without choosing. So I decided dance on itself is a crazy thing to think about. Like dance as such, or like what would be like a pure or essential definition of dance is insane to me, because it's a goddamn mess is what dance is. Just kidding. So then I went on this whole inquiry about this paradox between something, like trying to modernize something and its irreducibility or refusal to be modernized. And that's the whole trilogy. And then on the entertainment side, those pieces were motivated by different problems to solve, different questions, obviously. I guess chronologically they happened at the same time, but I was doing something with my friend Heather called The Heather Lang Show by Eleanor, Bauer, and vice versa. I'll get back to the trilogy because maybe I can be more specific about it. So just to be really basic about a very direct relationship to entertainment. This is the epitomizing example of that. This is a show I do with my friend Heather Lang. It's called The Heather Lang Show by Eleanor Bauer and vice versa. We are both basically drag queens. We understand ourselves as drag queens in the world. We are straight women trapped in gay men's psyches. Yeah, I think it has to do with like being a large person in the world, maybe. You put on a pair of high heels, you're like, I don't feel like woman. I feel like an extra woman, like a drag queen is like more of a woman than a woman. That's what I feel like, more of a woman than a woman. I'm a drag queen. Anyway, so we have this show where we're basically, we met in college. It's all a very personal relationship, but what was the problem we were solving? We were solving the problem of being dancers without any education in theater or television or acting or comedy, and also the challenge of how to do whatever you want, which is a motivating force, I think, a lot of the time. How to do whatever you want is a difficult question, right? That's what we have to do all the time in art, basically. It's on us to make it up. Contemporary art has no definition. It is, by definition, made up. Like, it's contemporary. To be contemporary is to be making it up. So you kind of have to, like, figure out whatever you want to do, figure out how to do whatever you want, what it is that you want to do. You're writing, pencils are moving, how to do whatever you want equals contemporary art. Yes. Anyway, so yeah, it's a piece called Trash is Fierce where we take garbage, repurposed garbage, and we talk about like this garbage. It's not a bottle. This is actually this is a magnifying glass. This is actually a third eye horn. This actually sends the energy of my third eye and we make them all spirit products. Basically, like convincing the audience that this object is their spirit product, like a spirit animal, but it's a product. So it's also sort of like there's a lot of weird anti-capitalist or ecological or spiritual discourse getting like mixed in there about stuff, our relationship to stuff and garbage and also money. So we're being basically like QVC infomercial, like people on the TV in the daytime that are like, do you see how this is a brush, like demonstrating a cleaning product and trying to sell it, or demonstrating usually like house products. A lot of house products. What? Yes, television salespeople, that kind of thing. So we're television salespeople, but we don't want your money. This is your spirit product. This is your destiny to have this piece of garbage. Like, it's not garbage. It's your inner mirror. It's a broken compact, whatever. Mirror to the soul. Anyway, so we made a music video about that. I'll just share it with you. This is our theme song. Give you some entertainment halfway through the evening to keep things fresh. Get ready. I'll be hiding over here in the meantime. Sham Wow is a cleaning product from the 90s. It was like a Swiffer. It was like a little rag that you can wash and reuse again. And there was infomercials all day, every day about Sham Wow. So our expression, sham fucking wow, bitch.
Trash is fucking fellas, bitch, get in. Get into it. We is fucking fellas, bitch, get in. Missing, this is fucking fellas, bitch, get in. Get into it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Patch your weave, recycle more. Madam Shows is giving shows. Madam Shows is showing hose. Hosiery is what she knows. Big discount from head to toe. Don't throw shade, you shade, bitch, cause I've got mine, it's cool to a lie. Don't throw shade, you shade, bitch, cause I've got mine, it's cool to a lie. He's saying the whore is not the ball. Table that level, I've got it going on. He's saying the whore is not the ball. Table that level, I'm what's going on. Bag of beans, start on with quick, do wrong with it. Recycle more. Bag of beans, start on with quick, do wrong with it. Recycle more. Past Bungie girl. I'm House of Tarjavia. Labia, Tarjavia. I'm House of Pick and Savior. Dumpster dump.
Sorry, I gotta give you some backstory there. Target is a discount store in the United States of America for clothing. It's much like your, like Hema, maybe? No, it's more like, yeah, it's kind of Hema level, but only for clothes. So, House of Tarjavia. Moving on.
Ivan made me the queen of this runway job. Don't try and read me, girl. Use illiterate. Get a book, you can't read it. Use illiterate. I literate. You pick it up, I glitter it. We give a show, you live for it. Get into it. We are the shit. Jam fucking wow, bitch. Bitch. Jam fucking wow, bitch. Bitch, get in, get into it. We is fucking fellas, bitch, get in. Listing, over bitches serving you. Reuse, recycling. Don't be mad, we're giving you greenhouse effect, so striking. When lightning strikes, it's frightening. It makes my way so tightening. Dindada, ding, a minute and a step, don't waste no blame. Streamline, baby line. Skinny legs and a tiger heart. Are you going?
This is adapted from a dialogue in the movie Paris is Burning.
Are you going through some kind of psychological change in your life?
Are you going through some kind of gynecological change in your life?
What do you think that paper can buy? That $800 dress ain't going to change your mind.
And it ain't gonna fix your vajayjay either, honey.
And it sure as hell ain't going to make you a lady.
Did you see Miss Thing roll up into Gucci the other day, spending up all her coins in?
Why, yes I did, and I think she needs to pop a coin into a phone booth and call Miss
Miss Cleo was a psychic from the 1980s on television who got ousted for having a fake Jamaican accent and not actually being a psychic.
Cleo, because clearly she's got some clouds blocking the vision of her mind's eye.
I'm nobody's meteorologist, but I can tell you what a problem is.
Give it. She needed to do a swoop in the garbage bin. Don't waste your time in the checkout line. We'll dress you up for a smaller fine. Don't waste your time in the checkout line. We'll dress you up for a smaller fine. Recession special for your bow. Tell your mom and daddy you don't need a loan. Recession special for your bow. Tell your mom and daddy you don't need a loan. The dollar store is fully grown with plastic bags and pastel towels. Work, bitch.
Skip the cash, it don't impress my tightrope ass. I walk to school, don't use no gas.
You've just been schooled by the house of sass. I find your fashion sense crass. You really need to use your trash. Trash, fucking trash. Excuse me if my words are rash.
Give me that stash, I'll smoke the trash.
We turn tricks and still give class. Transformation, shine fucking wow, bitch. Shine fucking wow.
So that happened. Also in the vein of entertainment, but more maybe confronting why is that a desire for me to entertain, or why is that? Because it's not, what is it? It's like a certain form of like generosity also, or like having a lot of ideas, wanting to share them, and etc. This solo I made, Big Girls Do Big Things, I think the problem or question I was confronting in that was very personal. It was a lot in relation to how people perceive me. I had just been working on this project with Heather in 2009, and then I had this injury while working with Rosas, and then Heather got hired on Broadway to do Spider-Man the musical, which was the biggest disaster on Broadway ever. That's what she gets. Anyway, no, I'm kidding. So I was all alone with this injury and like this premiere date that was supposed to be our premiere, also in for Trash's Fierce thing, whatever. But then I had the date, and I was going to cancel the date. I was going to just forget it because I was like, I couldn't walk, and I was. So I go to this meeting with the programmer of Bauer, and I say, sorry, I can't do the thing. Heather, she's on Broadway, and I have this injury. I think I should just cancel. And he's like, well, that's too bad because you have more pre-sales tickets than Ultima Vez. So you got an audience in Ghent. And then, of course, because flattery always works, I said, I make a solo. I have a lot of ideas. I'll make a solo. It's cool. So I ended up going to the studio and making this thing, and being, for the first time since like coming to Europe in a few years, maybe, having worked with other people and then having made it large and some things, being alone in the studio without a pretext, no concept proceeding. I was really in confrontation with myself as a performer and what do I want to do on stage and why. And I was suddenly coming up against the idea of all the different expectations that are also placed upon me, but anyone has them, the way other people see you, what they expect from you because of who you are in whatever ways. And scale became a thing for me. When I was performing at Large in New York, the lighting technician saw a graffiti that said, "Big Girls Do Big Things," and he took a picture of it and gave it to me at the premiere, and I was like, ha ha ha, is that what you think of me? Like, big girls do big things? That sounds so pushy. I'd be like, I sometimes even forget that I'm tall when I'm hanging out with short people. I'm like, we're the same, right? No, we're not the same. Like, people don't see us the same. Like, I can't get away with things that little people can get away with, and they also probably don't get treated the same that I get treated. Like, your scale or your persona, being a big mouth, a big brain, a big personality, a big body, a big person, changes what is possible for me in the world and not possible for me in the world all the time. And the way people assume I am or expect me to behave or what they expect me to produce as an artist, I think, was part of what I was thinking about at that time. And I had also just come out of working in a very large company where I was too much. Like, it was a large group piece, and I was full of ideas and energy, and I had so much to give to that process, and a fraction of it was taken, which is not an insult. It's fine. It's because there's a lot of people in the room, and everybody's not going to do everything they have in mind. But somehow feeling like also my excess energy always was a bit too much. Like, Eleanor, can you just be normal? Like, whatever. It was just a little. I had this feeling of excess, being too much for some contexts that were drier or more refined or more measured. Also, not wanting to be as big as people wanted me sometimes. Like, people expecting that this person should be this kind of energy on stage is not maybe what I wanted to deliver. So I was looking at all these different icons of performers that have different like scales. And I was looking at mostly larger scale personas. So I was thinking about rappers, like how rappers just brag about how they're the shit and they're the best rapper alive, and they have so many cars and so much money, and all the ladies love them. Like, that's just what you do as a rapper? Like, is that what you talk about? Is that the content? Wow, because in a lot of some of it, not all of it, but a lot of the mainstream crap, that's like the form of rapping. It's like to brag. That's the practice. Wow. So I took a part of Ice Cube monologue from, I made a monologue out of an Ice Cube rap, "I was born not to give an F." Sorry for all the cussing, guys. It's not for the kids. So this piece, I was also in confrontation with other stories and memories of people perceiving me a certain way because of my scale. I had performed a repertory piece. I was performing Rain in Amsterdam with parts, and some guy said I'm like an ice bear that dances like a swan. And I was like, is that a compliment or an insult? Because I'm not sure. He's like, you are so big, but you're so fast and graceful, like the little ones. And I was like, are you calling me fat? Like, I don't get this. What's going on? Like, it was super crazy. And I could not shake this memory of being told I'm an ice bear that dances like a swan. So in this piece, I have this extra large bear suit, which is like a metaphor for like the extra large skin I do or don't fill, or like what I hide behind it, and how do you manipulate this surface, and how a performer does that. Like, what you do in performance is deal with a surface between you and what people see. And so the idea was a lot about also the use of self as a medium. Like in the making of a solo, like also a lot of time in collaboration in theater, performance, or dance, like in the room, we are the material. Like, we come up with all the ideas. Our bodies and our capacities and our voices and our affinities are the material that we're putting on the table and making something out of nothing with a lot of the time. Of course, we bring texts and we have references and we have ideas, but the people are the stuff. So I was thinking a lot about the use of self, like how much do you give of yourself inside of a process, or what do you give of yourself on the stage? And also this like border and play between fiction and autobiography. So I say a lot of stuff in this piece which is true, and I say a lot of stuff in this piece which is totally not true. So I get in this bear suit, and I just like completely deform it, and I make it not a bear, and then it's the more of this thing, the more of this thing, and then I end up as a bear, and then the bear discovers the symbols, and wow, and then what do we do with the symbol? How does this work? I don't know. Oh, I have an idea. Maybe this is what you do with a symbol. And then the bear discovers that the bear is supposed to be an entertainer. Oops. And then the bear decides the bear has to be something else than an entertainer. Whatever. It's very freaking narrative. Fine. Finally, you have the singing of a song. Oh, that's not that. That's the Ice Cube monologue. That's not with a text. That's my voice. I did that. I'm going to do what I want to do, when I want to do it, how I want to do it. And y'all better hope.
I don't do it to you.
I don't do it to you. And y'all better hope I don't do it to you. That's the Ice Cube lyric. It doesn't really make sense. Fine. So then there's the singing of a Patsy Cline. There's the runway transforming the bear suit into a lot of different things. This was all just like images in the notebook. Sometimes things just come to you if you open the windows. Then on the note of scale, I was also thinking about like being pushed too far. What's the minimum, what's the maximum, and how far can you go? So I sing this song, Patsy Cline's Crazy, because the story of that song is actually that she hated that song. It was written for her and she hated it because the range was too big. It goes so low, so high. I start as low as possible, that's why it sounds really bad. She was given a song that was too big of a range for her. And so I take that song and I sing it as low as I can, and every time it modulates and goes up, because that's the way the song is made, I take a step on the ladder and I go higher and higher and higher until it's beyond my range. So there's a period like this much in the middle where I can actually sing and it sounds decent. And then everything else is basically torture. And there's a monologue at the top with Karen Finley, etc. Karen Finley was a reference there for me about like a performance art hero who defied expectations and etc. Fine, and then at the end you shed the bear suit and become the black swan, and there's a swan variation, and it ends the end. That's Big Girls Do Big Things. And just a short note on the trilogy, I guess. I don't know what to say. The trilogy's a lot. Here's my advice to you about the trilogy. It's very language oriented. Go to goodmove.be, where the trilogy about this notion of modern versus impossibly modern came out in 3 pieces. A Dance for the Newest Stage, the triangle piece. Why is that achronological? Oh, it's backwards. A Dance for the Newest Stage, the triangle piece was the first of them when I was thinking mostly about the questions of formalism in dance and what it means to make shapes together as a kind of modern question. I think, if you try to abstract the body or think about dance as such. I was thinking a lot about how shapes, the making of shapes in pre-modern cultures was actually super endowed with meaning. Like shapes and symbols were the same in a way. And the ways that cultures pre-modern times were organized were a lot of the time through shapes and forms. And that was also the thing that would synthesize everything in that culture, from like belief to practices to like social and political practices to the way they would farm or what they believed about nature, and then their spiritual beliefs and everything. For instance, like the Hopi Native Americans or Navajo Pueblo Native Americans with the circle and the 4 directions. So you see that in the kivas, there's like 4 entrances and it's a circular architecture, and they would always plant their crops in the 4 areas, and they would always sit in a circle, and they believed in the people coming from the 4 directions of the earth. And then the Zia symbol for the sun, which is the New Mexico flag where I'm from, it's a circle with 4 stripes coming out of each 4 direction. And so it was how they organized their social life together, was this shape. It was how they did their architecture, it was that shape. It's how they would meet in the kivas for their sort of like spiritual / political meetings with the same thing, in that shape. The crop, everything. The shape was the meaning, was the synthesizer of meaning. Or you can look at like the early Greeks or whatever, where you have angles, the early geometers, the idea of like the angle from the horizon to a star, angle also like angel. The connection between the earth and the heavens was through all this like relationship between astrology and geometry, basically. So their architecture and how the politics were arranged were all, like shapes were very present in all of that. So shapes were full of meaning. It was like shapes were not an abstract tool for like measuring space. The measurement of space itself was like a meaningful event. You look at like the flooding of the Nile every year, and then we go back again, and that was where geometry started, because they had to replant like how things were put in space. So it was full of metaphors. Like the circle meant one thing, the square meant another thing, the triangle had another power. Like all these shapes had a lot of meaning. So yeah, synthesis and also analogy. And then you can look at other periods that happened later, like sort of like Renaissance was another period where analogy between many different fields of interest would be coordinated through forms, like Fibonacci spiral, or like math was like this sacred thing. People who in the Renaissance were artists and mathematicians and philosophers, because we didn't consider those things to be separate. And we would see a form in nature and consider it proof of this idea to be real and true. And so I was thinking, this is something that came up later, because I was like, what does it mean to make shapes? Like maybe it's actually not modern, but it's like ancient. Maybe there's something really like back here in our like weird collective unconscious cloud that we understand what meanings shapes make. Because in modern art, and very high modern art, the notion of like the repetition of a form is almost like formalism. A lot about formalism is usually about just stripping a form of its meaning. Like we'll repeat a form, whether it's a word or it's a shape. We'll repeat it and we'll simplify it until it loses its meaning, somehow to empty it, to really get to like the basic, the stuff itself, just mute in a white cube. And I'm like, but what if we still have this, what if we still know what it means? What if we still feel a meaning from our deep, deep past or something? And so I was thinking about also, I was reading this text by Gombin called What is the Contemporary? And in that text, I can just run some video on this one. In that text, he talks about the contemporary being a person who can see their present time with the same distance as someone who looks at the past. So being sort of like asynchronous, like dislocated, detached in time. Oh, it's very bad resolution. To be dislocated in time and to be able to look at something in present tense sort of from the outside. And so I was thinking about dislocation in time in the making of this piece a lot, and how maybe having a relationship with modern and pre-modern and contemporary and the future would be possible through some kind of weird timeless place we would invent on stage. So I was thinking about matter itself also. There was a very important book called We Have Never Been Modern by Bruno Latour. While I was sitting there asking my questions about like if dance can be modern, if it's possible, I find this book by Bruno Latour called We Have Never Been Modern, where he talks about the impossibility of the modern constitution in Western history as the attempt to separate three spheres of truth production. So at some point, modern with a big M, I don't know, when does he mark it? 18, 17, 50? Or 14?
Between
Boyle and old, long time ago. Like modern era does not, we're not talking about modern art, different times. Anyway, history's not my forte, can you tell? And he's, in his book, which I will try to summarize and fail, but do so anyway, he talks about the impossible separation of science, politics, and religion as three spheres of truth production in the modern constitution. That's his big thing he talks about. That at this point in time, we decided, mankind and Western civilization decided that we would make facts about nature in the laboratory where nature would no longer speak to us, is no longer spiritual or sentient, is isolated under a microscope or in a vacuum, and where we have facts about objects and physics and chemistry is in this white coat space, slicing the cadaver open in this room, analyzing, pulling apart. And then we make, so that's where facts are produced in science, and then we make we make decisions in politics about ethics and what's the public life and what's the good life and how do we treat each other and what is human nature and what are we essentially sharing as humans and what is the public space and how do we organize it and what's good and what's bad, what kind of laws do we need to not kill each other. Are people essentially good? Then maybe we can be anarchists. Are people essentially bad? Then let's be Machiavellian. We're going to need some laws, whatever. Politics, and then religion or spirituality, where we produce beliefs about the unknown unknowns, like the things that cannot be proven in the laboratory or decided in the parliament. The realm of like philosophy or religion, where you really ask the big questions about meaning or reality or the uber. And so I took this idea of the symbol of the triangle as the impossible analysis and synthesis of these three things. So the equilateral triangle is also a symbol for eternity. And so the triangle piece was this whole dance. It was a dance. It was a dance on a triangle. So we borrowed the triangle. Also, the audience sits on three sides. We put the whole theater into a triangle and went through every possible way of analyzing in a tripartite way, analyzing our whatever we're doing or our reality. So three states of matter: solid, liquid, gas. We start in a solid. We made that solid in the beginning, and then we melt into liquid, and then we do this really silly task of inflating. This is liquid, and then we start to inflate like balloons. This is gas, inflating. There we are, balloons, inflating, blowing. We were watching lots of videos of like blow up houses when they sort of bloop, 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 bloop. Solid, liquid, gas, or past, present, future, or the science, politics, religion, or I can't remember. But this piece was like all mapped out on the synthesis on the triangle, whatever. So after that piece was made, I realized how much was left to do. And I thought, oh, that piece, looking in retrospect, we deal a lot with the body as matter and immaterial matter and immaterial. There's a tension between like the stuff of the body and the untouchable stuff of dance. But we look at it a lot through science. And with our interest in the pre-moderns, I think we look at it a lot through history. So I was thinking, what if what I just did was make the beginning of a trilogy? And so I gave myself two new problems to solve. It was make the next two pieces. So then I decided after the fact, that piece was past and that piece was science. And then I would do present and politics. And then I would do future and spirituality. And that is from whence came. So you can just watch these on the internet. Just go, you can do whatever you want. Go website, enjoy the internet. It's there for you, the internet. And I think my time is up, so I will not say more about those pieces. But if you go to www.goodmove.be, and you go to the pieces themselves, you can have all these words about them, so much verbiage, no shortage of language or pictures. So many words about it, so you're fine. And please do come on the 31st of March, especially Tuesday the 31st of March, to Kai Studios. Your colleagues and friends who just finished a 4-week masterclass with yours truly, where we made a musical in 4 weeks, which I think was so good I decided to program it on my very own Bauer Hour. So I invited them to Bauer Hour. They're taking over Bauer Hour. We are taking over Bauer Hour. It's Bauer Hour featuring the Masters of Drama on the 31st of March at 8:30 p.m. at Kai Studios. You really should come because they're great. They're great. And then if you want to see more video, there's that. There, boom. Blah. Websites, guys, the internet. You can do everything. You can do everything on the internet. No, you can't. You can't be here in this room together on the internet. It's beautiful. Closing remarks or questions? I'll make it short, I promise.
You seem so confident, but...
I seem so confident.
Yes, but you are, I think, a bit insecure about some things, no? Because you remove videos and when the video was playing, you were covering your head.
Because I can't be seen laughing at my own shit. That's not cool.
Yeah, but you seem insecure about that.
Oh, okay.
You know?
I don't ever know how Europe is going to get that. I mean, it's also it's a weird, I don't know, it's humor. Humor is so cultural. That's one of the things I confronted coming to Europe. I was like, people laugh when I don't think it's funny. I laugh when other people aren't laughing. All my jokes are language based. I was not funny for like 4 years. Luckily I'm funny again. But because I couldn't do anything with my words. Everything I did was like playing with words. Everything. I would like constantly speak in dialectic shifts and people would just be like, okay, we go to store now. And I'm like, fuck. Okay, no, we don't go to store now because you don't understand me. So that's also, I was thinking about that a lot with Big Girls Do Big Things. If humor is there anything beyond language and culture that you can get, like from the vibe? Can you not understand a word I'm saying and still get the joke? Like that was something I was thinking about, like humor as texture or whatever, like meaning as texture, also the sort of abstract qualitative. So that's why a lot of the stuff I do physically is like this weird textural task-based stuff, not like narrative or emotionally driven or psychologically driven stuff. Thinking about expression as texture. Something that came back in my work a lot, comes back in my work all the time. I seem confident but insecure. Oh, geez.
That's not a
Welcome to my life. You think it's hard watching? Try being me. Just kidding.
Because maybe the question is, do you like your own work?
Do I like my own work? That is a good question.
Because artists never like their own work.
Yes, this is a good question. At large, I don't have online because I don't have the old videos. I just have to I'm just lazy. I never put them, because I made it in 2007. You didn't push it on Vimeo. Vimeo did not exist in 2007. And I didn't like to send videos of work in 2000. I was like, come to the show, it's not the same. But the scratching thing, like the dance fad, putting it on to proliferate, it was just so silly because it sort of was somewhere between a sincere thing and a joke, but I just didn't think it really worked. You can also just take stuff back. It doesn't make you insecure. You're like, I know what I tried there. I think it was a great idea. You're cute, but you don't have to show everything. Why should I show everything? It's just not good anymore. Just let it go. I would say, considering how many things are on the internet still, I'm not so selective. But the question of if I like my own work, I learned to like my own work when I stopped identifying with it. For all of you aspiring artists in this room, you are not your artwork. You're not. It's not you. That is like the biggest dilemma we have in life, is like wanting to be accepted and understood for who we are, all of what we are. That's called like love, okay? You're not gonna get that from 2,000 people in a room. If you're going on stage to be loved, like, go to a shrink. Like, this is not the place or time. No, and also what you do on stage is not you. It's a thing, you're using yourself. This thing, that's what Big Girls Do Big Things is very much about, using myself in order to produce something which is a surface between me, all of me, which is far more complex than you shall ever understand in an hour, and you who are far more complex, all of you individually, than I will ever know how to access at once. So you produce this other thing, which is this meeting point with an idea and some intentions, and you do your best. And then when it's made, if I identify with the artworks, and I'm my own worst critic, we all are our own worst critic, whether I'm like fully narcissistic and think I'm amazing, or I'm a terrible, terrible, low self-esteem, morbid, suicide, doesn't matter. The point is, if I'm expecting to continue to have the same, that thing is now, the piece is made, it's external. It can change, it can evolve. Every time you perform it, it's a little different. It's squishy, maybe it's not hard, but I can't expect to have the same relationship to that thing forever. I felt about it differently before I made it, when it was an idea over here. I felt about it differently when I was putting it together, then I feel about it differently when it's done, and I'll continue to feel about it differently. The best relationship you can have to your own pieces, I don't have kids, but I think about my pieces as children, right? Because with a kid, get into it, guys. Good parenting tips also. You aspiring parents in the room, you put everything in, like, you want it to work out okay for little Billy Bob or whatever. You don't want him to be a fuck up. You don't want him to be hated. You want him to be accepted and loved and understood by everybody. You want him to be successful. You want him to go on tour. You want him, like, you want it to work out for the kid. Like, you want it to, but the kid is not you. And parents who over-identify with their children are the fucked up kind of parents who say, no, you can't be an artist, because I wanted to be an artist and I failed, so that's not your future either. Or whatever. Like, when people project too much on their kids, it's bad news, right? Or in positive ways, when someone's like, I'm so beautiful and amazing, my child is the image of me and my beautiful amazingness, and my husband, and we're so beautiful and amazing together. We're all so beautiful. Be beautiful and amazing! Like, it's just psychoses. You don't want to do that to your art either, basically. So you imagine your art as a child who you need to provide a context for the child to grow. What does it need? A good education, whatever. Light and water and soil. Wait, maybe your plants, maybe it's a plant. I don't know. But the point is, it's not you. And it doesn't need what you need, even if you made it. Closing statements by Eleanor Bauer. Go make children or art or neither. Oh. Thank you very much.